welcome to today's live stream about the future of Ethereum. So today, I'm glad we have invited several speakers from Ethereum communities. So they are key opinion leaders. So let's start from David. So David is an Ethereum community member, worked for Almisco and Bitfish. David, you want to say hello to everyone?
Hey everyone. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great. Okay, and also we have QJ Wang, who is the Executive Director of Ethereum Community Fund. QJ?
Hi guys, I'm very happy to be invited to talk to you guys, and we will soon launch our new plan for the new year, so keep updated from us.
Awesome. And also we have Raul Jordan, who is the co-founder of Prismatic Labs. Raul, say hello to everyone.
Hey everyone, Raul here, working on Ethereum 2.0, so here to answer any questions you guys might have about the topic.
Okay, cool. And we have Wei Tan from Parity Technologies. Wei, you want to say hello to everyone?
Hi everyone. So I'm a Rust developer at Parity Technologies, and I work on Parity Ethereum and also the Parity's Ethereum 2.0 client. So let's hope we have a good chat.
Okay, great. So actually, we will also have Alfred Shorten, who is the Ethereum Hub 4 coordinator and the Parity Ethereum release manager, but he will join us later in the session. And okay, so and don't forget, we do have a live AMA on the Reddit, on the Ethereum Reddit. Then you can look for a Huobi Global, and it's called the future of ETH live stream and AMA. Then you can search for that thread, and please feel free to ask any question you want to for our speakers today, and we will answer them at the end of this session. All right, let's get started. Well, actually, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Ross Zhang. I'm the Ethereum community leader at Huobi Group, and so I'm very interested in the Ethereum community and also the ETH 2.0, and of course the upcoming Constantinople hard fork. So first of all, let's just start with some questions for our guests today. So let's start with QJ. So because this upcoming Constantinople hard fork, so what does the Ethereum community think about this hard fork? Especially, we have several EIPs, especially on the EIP 1, 2, 3, 4, that may impact on the miners. It will reduce the miners' reward from 3 ethers to 2 ethers. So will it cost miners to switch to mine other coins? What will happen?
Thank you, Ross, for the question. I'm just trying to make sure my name tag is not covered, as reminded by one of our people here. I don't know whether I am able to speak for the community at all, because even though we have a few channels where we can pull opinions and ideas from the community, I wouldn't, and there's a lot of mentioning of this fork being non-contentional. But at the same time, as you mentioned, there will definitely be some miners that are unhappy about the decrease of rewards. I think overall the sentiment is that we are quite excited about changes. The fact that we will make it more effective, less gas will be consumed, and easier for people to use in general. This is positive change that Ethereum has always wanted for going for better, for doing more things. And it is also necessary for the next step. To prepare for the difficulty bomb. But what we cannot really, we definitely read some angry Reddits, like miners, especially ASIC miners, are not super happy about this and threatening to leave. And this is something that I think is inevitable when you need to make changes, and there must be some conflicts that will have to be involved in making progress, because there are existing stakeholders, there are existing groups, people that are profiting from the current situation. That's why it stays as it is. But at the same time, to answer the question of whether miners will switch, I think it would probably be even worse if the price goes dropping still, like with this trend. If we really don't do anything about it, if you look at from the other side, to slow down inflation would also help the price on the other side, and that would potentially also keep them for longer term benefits. So I guess we'll just have to stay tuned for the progress.
Awesome. Yeah, I think from the price of Huobi Global, then we can see already seeing the Ethereum price went up from around like $80, 80 US dollars to around like 150, and right now I think it's 120, like for the past 2 months. So I think the price, the Ether price right now is very important. I think based on my conversation with the miners, then they don't want the further split between among the communities. So I do agree with you that Ether price is is very important. Okay, cool. And so the next question is because there are some like improvements on saving the gas for the smart contract and DApp developers. So this question is for Wei. So from smart contract and DApp developers' perspective, how does Constantinople hard fork affect them?
So the Constantinople hard fork has in total five EIPs, and except the EIP 1, 2, 3, 4, all the other remaining 4 EIPs are directly related to smart contracts and just related to DApp developers. So we have 3 of those EIPs that is trying to organize things. That is those things that we can already do in EVM framework, but we want to do it faster, more efficiently. So this includes the EIP of ext code hash, which is the EIP to it's a new opcode, but I mean right now it enables things like checking whether an address is a contract or a plan account more efficiently. It also allows things like if a smart contract need to check a contract code is whether of a specific one, but doesn't need to know the specific code. And we also have the EIP of bitwise operations. This is also something we can do already, but we want to remove all the obstacles and make it faster. So we introduce several new opcodes also. And for those, the DApp developers actually doesn't need to do anything. The compiler can pick them up by themselves, and the newly compiled smart contracts will automatically have those features. And we also have the EIP of the SS star net gas metering. This is EIP of gas reduction, which is precisely really useful for those smart contract developers that need to do things like the re-entry locks or things like some standard library. It can also encourage other library designs which try to leverage a transient storage. We have one new shiny new feature, the Creep 2 EIP, which as the feature is pretty simple. It is a deterministic new contract address when you create a new contract. So, but this enables a large variety of applications on Ethereum. For example, we now can build state channels more reliably. We can do offline multi-sig or other applications offline, and some DApp developers also mentioned that we can also give a new onboarding process for them. But all in all, I want to say that we didn't have any silver bullet in this Constantinople hard fork. Everything is incremental. We try to improve things one step try to do it via those EIPs, and hopefully via them we can increase the performance of the network by a little bit, and also encourage people to use the network more efficiently.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so I think that's a good news for smart contract developers because they can save some gas and to do the app development. And beyond this Constantinople hard fork, so the Ethereum community, I think and then people are talking about what happens after this Constantinople hard fork. So maybe it's the ETH 2.0, and the things Prismatic Labs has released a demo ETH 2.0 client last October. So this question is for Val. So can you please explain to the audience what ETH 2.0 is, and also what is the current status of ETH 2.0 research and development? So when will the testnet be launched?
Hey everyone, so ETH 2.0 is a big name for a whole suite of upgrades, including proof of stake and sharding. So since the beginning of the Ethereum network, there's been a big desire to switch over to proof of stake. There's been a lot of research and development put into Casper, FFG, and CBC as models for the switch. And there has also been a lot of talk about sharding as a way to parallelize transaction execution on the Ethereum blockchain. In particular, there's been a lot of talks about scalability at the base layer. How can we make it so that Ethereum can handle real-world usage in the sense that we don't need to worry about the throughput of a single dApp clogging up the whole network. So to do this, there has been a lot of there have been parallel efforts. So Casper Proof of Stake and sharding for a long time have been independent research efforts. However, at the middle half of this past year in 2018, the efforts were actually merged, and the whole idea behind the research team was sharding requires its own security pool. Proof of stake requires its own security pool that comes from a set of validators. Why don't we merge the two initiatives into one single idea called Ethereum 2.0? And this term has actually been renamed to Ethereum Serenity since DevCon of this last year. And instead of it being done through a hard fork, the idea is that there are a bunch of different teams, including my own Prismatic Labs, that are implementing ETH 2.0 as as a standalone project. So essentially, the whole system will be a new blockchain from scratch. It'll be a pure Casper proof of stake blockchain, where users will then be able to send the current ether they have on the proof of work chain to a smart contract, which will then queue you in as a validator on this new chain. So essentially, we want to be able to leverage the current value of ether and the security that the current chain has to onboard and create a whole new chain that has a lot of security guarantees and is ready to take on the next step of the network. This is a very high level overview, and I'm very much willing to go into deeper, into a lot more depth throughout the questions in this AMA session. In particular, like I said, this will not be done exactly through the hard fork, so don't expect there to be like a Constantinople scenario to launch this sort of proof of stake chain. Instead, what we're going to do is going to be doing more of a community-based effort around educating the community what this means, how it's going to be launched, and getting people to deposit their current ether into the smart contract, which will then turn you into a validator for ETH 2.0. So in the same way that you run a parity or a get node today, you would be running one of the nodes, such as a Prismatic Labs node, a Prism node, or a Lighthouse node, which is done in Rust. And there are a lot of other teams also working on this, including Pegasus, chain safe systems with Lodestar. Nimbus team is doing this as well. So you would be running one of these nodes yourself, staking amounts of 32 ether to become validators and becoming a proof of stake validator. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think that's very useful. That's very useful information because right now like people are still confused. I at least from the people I heard, people get confused whether this Constantinople hard fork will become like a proof of stake for Ethereum. So as well as claimed, the proof of stake will come with ETH 2.0 phase 0.
Yeah.
And
one more thing, Ross. I think you asked the last thing about when our testnet's coming and what the typical timeline look like for that.
Exactly.
So my team is doing a testnet in Q1. So Q1 2019. That is in these next few months. So expect to see a lot more information about that coming very soon.
Yeah, that's good to know. All right, and so next question, we're talking about the layer one solution, and maybe David can chime in about the layer two. So how do you see the Constantinople half work affecting projects working on layer two scale?
It's super exciting, just in general, to watch the Ethereum virtual machine evolve. Essentially, a lot of these EIPs that are being implemented are essentially optimizations. They improve the efficiency of Ethereum. And how this works is essentially each operation, each opcode has a certain gas cost. And as Ethereum evolves, essentially everyone kind of has a better idea with regards to how much strain on the system each opcode takes. And so essentially everyone's able to discuss it, and we're actually able to refine the opcode gas costs and introduce new exciting opcodes like Create 2, which is super big for layer 2 solutions. And so, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in this hard fork that's super exciting. I would say Create 2 is probably the biggest one for L2 type stuff, particularly counterfactual state channels, because it just makes creating those interactive games off-chain super easy. And then I'm also super excited how Create 2 will work with the new smart contract verification, because you could actually have counterfactual interactive state channel games. And then you can have deployed smart contracts actually check the code once it is deployed to make sure that it's correct with the other EIP that performs smart contract verification. So I think there's a lot of synergy between some of the EIPs that are being implemented. Also super excited about S-Store. Storing information on Ethereum is usually the most costly part of any transaction. So anything we can do to make that more efficient is amazing, especially because it comes with very little downside. The way it's implemented really has no downside and only upside, just in terms of decreasing the gas cost of each transaction that uses, or the majority of transactions that use S-Store. So yeah, a bunch of exciting things. From a Plasma perspective, when we're talking about Plasma, we're essentially periodically committing block roots to an Ethereum smart contract. So we're using S-Store quite a bit. So I'm very excited to incorporate the new S-Store in our Plasma design. Yeah, a lot of fun stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's good news for both like Plasma and also the state channels.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. All right, and so maybe we can talk about I want to bring up a panel discussion. So I have a few questions, and I would like each of the guest speaker to speak what they think about these questions. And of course, please remember, like for the audience, please remember to send in your questions to our online AMA right now, and then we will select a few questions to answer in the live stream. Yeah. So the first question for Ethereum users, what do you guys suggest them to do before the half fork and after the half fork? Anyone wants to talk about it? The user suggestions? Or maybe start from David.
Yeah. So because this is hard fork has been agreed upon by the majority of the community, for the most part, it's non-contentious. Most Ethereum users, most people won't actually have to, or shouldn't have to do anything if everything goes as planned. That being said, they should definitely follow it and pay attention to it to see what's happening, because there could be unexpected surprises. That's it.
Yeah. So go ahead, Rob.
I want to add to that. I guess users should just be extra careful during the hard fork times, because people might be confused and, like David said, think that it might be a contentious hard fork, and it's not. People might be claiming that they can double your coins, give them access to your old private key, stuff like that. So just be extra careful on the internet with your ETH around the hard fork time.
Yeah. So actually, that's one thing I want to add, because this is not really a hard fork. It's considered as like an upgrade more. And we already got some like user asked whether they will get some like airdrops, because they heard some like rumors. This is a hot fork, then they will get some like candies airdropped. So like from the Huobi's perspective, so we will give like the airdrop, we will do the airdrop. While if the product team is legit, it's not like a scam. Just be careful if someone is asking your private keys from something. And so the safest way for the normal users who don't want to worry about this, upgrade or hard fork at all, maybe the best way is to deposit the Ether to Huobi, and from our side we will handle all the complicated questions and after the hard fork. All right. Okay. All right. And okay. So the next question, you know, I would like to talk about, how will the Constantinople half fork affect Ethereum price? So who wants to talk about that? Maybe QJ, since you talked about the price before.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be the target here if I say go up and that's and
Don't worry, I'll be your backup.
for the past years in crypto, whenever I do any trading action, any trading moves, it goes usually the opposite direction. So I'm trying to refrain from commenting on the price because I'm overall positive. So overall bullish in any case because it's for the greater good. So I'll just stop here.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I guess I'll talk about the price, since like I'm from the like exchange side. So like statistically speaking, like the price like used to go up like when like everyone realized, oh, there's a hot fork coming. And then after the hot fork, the price will will probably like go down a bit, because the market was kind of like optimistic about this hot fork. And after the hot fork, and then people realized, then the market kind of cooled down a bit. That's from our statistical perspective. And if you look at the Ethereum price, as I mentioned, so the Ether went up from December, from like 80 bucks from December to around like 150, like in the beginning of January. Now it comes down to around like 120. I think that reflects the point. All right. Or who else wants to talk about price? It's
I can.
yeah. Go ahead.
I can't. I don't feel like I know enough to give an educated comment on Ethereum price. But I do feel quite confident in, or optimistic about the price of DAI being stable. It has functioned surprisingly well so far. So if you want to think a bit less about prices, look into stablecoins in general.
At the same time, the multi-collateral DAI is coming soon, so it will have much more collaterals to be chosen from, and be used much more with a bigger reserve. It will be very interesting to look forward to.
Interesting. Good to know. All right, and since like Effrey is here, and I'll just welcome him. Hi, Effrey.
Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, Effrey. Yeah, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone on the line?
Yeah, sure. I'm Alfred. I work for Parrish Technologies. I'm the release manager for the Parity Ethereum client. And I also recently stepped up to coordinate the Ethereum roadmap and hard forking and protocol upgrades.
Awesome. So I think Effrey is the best person to ask the questions about this hard fork, because he's coordinating it. So I guess the natural question for Effrey is, can you give our like normal users, non-technical people, like explain what is this Constantinople hard fork is, and what's the impact on Ethereum network after the hard fork. And I saw there's another hard fork this year called Istanbul. Maybe can you share more information about it as well?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, hard fork is a pretty technical term. It basically means by definition that the changes introduced in this protocol upgrade are not backwards compatible. So we still use this term, even though it contains the word fork. It doesn't necessarily mean we have a chain split after this. And the changes introduced in this network upgrade, this protocol upgrade, are in most cases not really relevant for end users. One proposal, the EIP 1234, is difficulty bound delay, which is interesting for miners and investors because it allows miners to mine the Ethereum proof of work chain for another 12 months by delaying the difficulty bound, and to stabilize issuance, it also adjusts the block reward down to 2 ETH. Other than that, the other 4 proposals are more targeted at smart contract and application developers. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. And yeah, so how many nodes have upgraded to Constantinople right now?
Over 9,000.
Okay, awesome.
I don't know how many Ethereum nodes are out there. I don't know how many of them upgraded. I assume that most of the important infrastructures, that will be miners, pools, exchanges, service providers like Impura, MyCrypto, all of them upgraded. I'm very confident about this. I think among the end users that run Ethereum nodes, most of them are not as closely following Ethereum or just lazy upgrading. I think there's like a 50% rate of people that already upgraded. But I'm very confident that we will not run into any issues.
Yeah, cool. So I'll speak from Huobi from the exchange perspective. So we already announced that we will support this upcoming Constantinople half fork. So stay tuned with our announcements, in the coming 1 or 2 days. We'll see it, when it will happen. All right, and so let's get back to our panel discussion questions. So when Ethereum enters Serenity, which will be the next phase for Ethereum, and so it will be using proof of stake instead of proof of work. So some people do have concerns on proof of stake, and what do you guys think about proof of stake versus proof of work? Is there any transition plan for ETH 2.0 to cut off proof of work? Maybe Raul, you can answer that.
Sure, I can talk more about the transition plan. Yeah, so originally Casper Proof of Stake was meant to be an overlay hybrid mechanism on top of the current chain. So the idea is that we would have some sort of way to finalize blocks on the Proof of Work chain by using a Proof of Stake system built into a smart contract. This plan has been deprecated in favor of a plan that would launch a full Proof of Stake chain from scratch by itself. And we ideally want this to be the new Ethereum chain enabled with sharding and smart contract execution down the line. So with respect to the transition, we do want to encourage a full switch to a proof of stake chain. This would entail having users, people that hold ETH, current miners, anyone that holds Ether in the network, to either to switch, to deposit Ether into this new chain and become validators. Additionally, we want to be able to transfer the current state of the Ethereum blockchain into a state on a shard in the future. So we don't want to cause any extremely breaking changes to how people interact with Ethereum today. We want DAI to keep functioning the way it is. We want all the smart contracts and dApps that are out there to continue functioning with the same access to state. So ideally, this will be just a major overhaul to scalability, throughput, and security. And that's one of the things that we care about the most. We want to reduce the impact on people using Ethereum, but we want to do it for the better. With respect to proof of work versus proof of stake, there is a lot to discuss with respect to that. I'll just kick off the discussion and move it to somebody else. But overall, I think that there are a lot more security guarantees that we can obtain by having proof of stake. And I think people are generally very excited within the community to have this switch.
Okay, great. So who else wants to, give his or her opinion on the proof of stake versus proof of work? Um, Maybe David, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. I can jump in. So proof of work has definitely been around longer, but I'm really excited about proof of stake. Just for me, I really like essentially having the consensus mechanism rely on value that's intrinsic to the protocol, as opposed to a bunch of external factors. Because when we're dealing with proof of work, we're dealing with electricity costs and hardware. And so the protocol, the blockchain doesn't really have any firsthand knowledge of that. And so it can't really it has a hard time adjusting itself based off that. Whereas when we're dealing with, say, staking with ETH, that's internal to the protocol, so it can react directly. Also, proof of stake is significantly better for the environment, which is icing on the cake.
Yeah, agree. Definitely, it's the best of 4 layers. All right, and maybe QJ, you want to talk about your opinion on proof of work versus proof of stake?
Yeah, sure. Because ever since Ethereum started, the promise has always been to change to shift to proof of stake, and the fact that it would allow much more people to enter, to participate, and the crypto economics that are being designed here is trying to allow that it's not going to be, of course, it's going to be a bigger stake, bigger influence, but it would not diminish the network, the community to hear from the people that have much less stake. That's like the very essential design that I think the core developers are working on right now, and there are a lot of insights and contributions from the community. This part is something, as David pointed out, is internal in the protocol, and it's something that the community can have it in its own control, and it would not be jeopardized or intervened or even disrupted by any hardware evolution, or just any potential corporate scheme that would happen to the community's growth path. And that's something that I'm mostly excited about.
Yeah. For me, one of the things that that I see as negatives are there. I think there's a lot more work that needs to be done on educating people about how exactly it works, what they need to do, like what can go wrong, right? I think it's a lot less intuitive to think about because it's a system, it's a security model based on penalties rather than rewards, and there are a lot harsher conditions for acting incorrectly or not doing a validator, being a malicious validator. So it's really important for people to understand kind of the risks that are involved with staking, and that it's not just like a money printing machine where you just you can just you can just earn or keep constantly earning rewards by doing nothing. You have to just be very active with watching your nodes. You have to be very active with understanding. You have a reliable connection. How is your node participating? And understand the risks and the possibilities of attacks, etc. So I think just there needs to be a lot more community outreach on the subject. Most of the implementers, we've been focusing on the implementation, of course. We have just been really deep down into the spec, getting everything aligned, making sure everything is secure. But over the coming months, I think there will be a larger push to educate the community more on what it means to be a validator.
Yeah, so regarding the penalties, from what I remember, I think, if you go offline, if you're a validator, if you go offline, well, the penalty is different from a malicious validator, right? If you validate malicious transactions, right? Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah. The system doesn't want to punish you per se for just things that can happen accidentally. Like maybe you lose internet, you don't have power for a little bit. What's going to happen, however, is that you will, after a while, you'll start losing your deposit. Uh, by a certain factor, so it'll start leaking. That's what we call quadratic leak. And essentially, after a certain point, then you're going to lose it all. This is basically to cover situations that can be accidental or such, but once again, I think the biggest thing you're missing out on is you're not reaping the rewards if you're not validating. And it's still very important to keep in mind. So some people, we do allow the ability for some people to stake, to put in more money as a deposit than the required staking amount, just in case if you think that your computer might be offline sometimes, or you might have an unreliable connection. you never want to go down the boundary of 32 ether. You always want to be safe against that. So you can put up a little bit more upfront to prevent your node from getting slashed or losing money.
Yeah, I see. So, Wei, well, what do you think about proof of stake versus proof of work? What do you think?
I think both proof of work and proof of stake has its advantage and disadvantage. First, for proof of work is simple, like it's really easy to understand, and it proved to work for more than 8 years or 9 years. But it of course wastes a lot of energy, and you can only get probabilistic blocks, like the finality cannot be like determined. But for proof of stake, we use less energy, and we can have finality. But in the meantime, it's a little bit more complicated. Like you can't make it so, no matter what the guarantee is, you can't make it so that it's as easier to understand as proof of work. And there's still some ongoing problem that need to be solved in terms of proof of stake. So I would think that it's like we still need to. There's still a lot of ongoing work we need to do to make Ethereum 2.0 to become a reality.
Yeah, I see. So, actually, what do you think? Proof of stake versus proof of work, and also, what do you think about pro POW?
First of all, I'm a miner at heart, so I love proof of work. It's plain and simple, and it's proved to work for decades now. But I'm also excited about the transition to proof of stake. The so-called serenity milestone in the Ethereum roadmap. But I'm only remotely following the research that's going on and the beacon chain implementation, so I cannot really comment on proof of stake and the Ethereum space. Regarding programmable proof of work, what do you want to know? I did some in-depth research the last 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just want to have some like a general idea on the problem.
So the idea is to squeeze in another network upgrade in the upcoming months to change or modify the proof of work algorithm for the Ethereum miners to something that prevents specialized hardware to be used to mine the Ethereum network. In most cases, these are ASICs. There are some around by Bitmain. There's another company called Lindsay that announced they are launching ETH ASICs this year. But now there's a lot of people moving and pushing for proposals that change this algorithm. And one of the proposals is this programmable POW, POW. And this is one attempt to change this algorithm, and there's like a bit controversial. There are people saying we are moving to proof of stake anyway, so why bother now? It's a waste of time, it's a waste of developer resources doing all this research, implementation, and testing. Others say it's urgent, we should stop Constantinople and squeeze in ProcPow into Constantinople. And then there are a lot of people in between that are like questioning, is ProcPow the correct choice? Are there better alternatives? Maybe we should investigate different proposals. Like the Monero community is researching randomized proof of work. So to make it much more flexible, change the proof of work algorithm in much smaller cycles, to prevent hardware manufacturers from building specialized optimized hardware for miners.
Okay, great. All right. So as we know, recent 51% attack on Ethereum Classic. And because the reward for miners will be reduced from 3 Ether to 2 Ether, so some miners, as we talked about, may switch to my other coins. So do you guys think the 51% attack will happen to Ethereum network? And then, and after that, how to give enough incentives for the miners to make them become the Casper validators. So I guess we will start with, what do you guys think about, whether the 51% attack will happen to Ethereum network? So let's just start with QJ. What do you think? Hello, QJ. Yeah. So.
Oh, sorry. I was broke off a little. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah. So the question is, do you think whether a 51% attack will happen to Ethereum network, like recently what happened to Ethereum Classic?
I think what happened to Ethereum Classic is an unfortunate thing. But we are generally very optimistic about that this is not going to happen. There's enough research and study done, and based on like the polling, the opinions, and what expressed by all these validators that are currently in the network, it doesn't seem to be very likely to happen. And I'm actually very curious from I'm actually very curious about the answers from all these other experts in tech, and to see whether they have similar views on this matter as how the community thinks about this issue.
Cool. So David, maybe you can chime in.
Yeah, sure. I really feel like I don't have enough information to predict a 51% attack. I mean, people can rent mining power, and as more and more people start to see the potential of Ethereum, I do think that there will be more people who want to work against it or attack it. So my answer there is hopefully it doesn't happen. It's definitely harder for it to happen on Ethereum than it was for Ethereum Classic. It will take significantly more financial resources for it to happen, but it could. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't. In terms of miners becoming Casper validators, I think it really all goes back to kind of what Raul mentioned with education. So the first step is getting miners and other kind of large players within the Ethereum ecosystem to really buy in to Casper, to get them to understand it, to get them to understand why they would want to participate. And then after that, just with the way things are moving with Ethereum, with just multiple decreases in block rewards, it seems like a fairly natural transition for them.
Yeah, I agree. So Ron, what do you think? So
it's a very non-zero it's definitely a non-zero probability. Like David said, I think we would need a lot more. Nobody really has holistic information on everything happening in nodes across the Ethereum network and exactly when an attack could take place. If somebody isn't attempting an attack right now, hopefully not. I think the important part about switching miners to proof of stake is, aside from education, is that the roadmap for S2.0 is also done in phases. So phase 0 will just be a proof of stake beacon chain, essentially, where you can deposit 32 ETH via validator, where you can't really do much with the rewards you earn. You're kind of just earning them. In the later phases, we'll be adding in sharding and smart contract execution. So at that point, you can send the rewards that you earned. You can send it to other users. You can use them in smart contract applications on the sharded blockchain. So in the meantime, I think there is a possibility for miners to start depositing any sort of multiples of 32 Ether that they have to become validators gradually. I think giving them the option to do it over time is really good. Miners do have access to Ether holdings, so they can go on and become validators as time goes on. then eventually see the benefit and follow some of the research in tandem. So I think that it's a matter of just really encouraging them for what they care about, really, like increasing, putting the ether that they're earning to work. They'll be earning a lot more ether, especially with like price volatility. Knowing that you'll be positive in ether at least is really good. So it's really a matter of just like giving them time, making development and implementation work more transparent, and eventually getting 1.0 core developers and 2.0 core developers discussing more about how to do the transition itself.
Okay, cool. So
Yeah, I think
then
Raul's
go
point
ahead.
about time is quite an essential key player here, because ever since POS was mentioned and a lot of other chains started to test around with it, I think the communities scattered around the world are pretty used to the idea of having staking pools, and there are a lot of initiatives that already started with it. So it only makes sense in terms of even just returns, profit returns, to put in to continue being profit even from a minus pure profit perspective, to continue to mine just for even the returns. And I feel like this time that before that Casper is fully implemented is a very ideal period of time to prepare for the Ethereum community's miners to get ready for that.
Yeah, I agree. So then, I'll be curious to see, to ask how to give enough incentives for the miners to make them become the Casper validators, right? Because they already have some investment on the mining machines, on the electricity, on the setups, operational costs, everything. So especially, when the Beacon chain is launched, maybe we need enough validators to launch the mainnet. Then the question is how to give enough incentives for the miners to do the switch. So, Rob, what do you think?
Sure. So as of now, you need around 16,384 deposits for the beacon chain to start. And there are a few reasons for this, but most of it is just we're trying to strike a balance between going as low as possible to make it easier for people to become validators, but not too low as to sacrifice too much security from the network. In particular, what's important is that the earlier you join as a validator in the beacon chain, so if you're part of like the initial validator set, for example, you'll be earning a lot more rewards than once more validators joined in, right? So it's to encourage a lot of early participation. I think miners will see the value proposition of this, and like you said, they already have the equipment, they have the computers, they have reliable uptime, and they also have ether holdings. So I think it makes a lot of sense for them to hedge, some of that in light of volatility. Just put it, deposit into the beacon chain, earn rewards in beacon ether, and eventually, once the two systems are merged, then things will improve a lot more. So I think that's what's really important for people to keep in mind. There are incentives for being validators early on.
Yeah, cool. So David, what do you think?
Oh, I was just gonna say that mining is awesome. It's quite proven, but I don't really see a reason to focus on attracting miners in particular to become validators when compared with other fairly large players. I mean, to be a validator, you have to hold ETH, and there are a lot of large ETH holders who run full nodes and who kind of know how to do the DevOps, the technical side of things. And so I really hope miners kind of jump on the validator train, but I don't think kind of that particular segment of the market is more important than any other.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that.
I'm waiting here to ask questions to what David just said, because I think the major concern would be if these miners don't switch to Casper, would they still be ETH holders, right? What that would do? What would they do to actually affect the market stability in terms of price? And that's like I think one of the major pushes for hoping that they could stay to continuously hold Ether. Well, or if we don't care.
Oh, yeah, I think from the exchange perspective, like we do care like people who hold like hold ethers, right? Because like like I think like Ethereum is like it's very important. Like it's probably like um one of the like the most popular like the public chains available right now. So and I think like in Ether, because a lot of people are holding Ether right now, and yeah, like we definitely care about whether the people who already have large ethers will still hold it. And I mean, maybe, yeah, we'll see about that. Okay, and yeah, so let's switch to the question from our Reddit AMA. So the user Funny X Fun. Okay, that's a very funny name. All right. The question is for Afri. Um, I have a question for you since you authored EIP 1234. I understand that you propose a delay of the assay by postponing the difficulty bomb due to a delay in Casper and proof of stake development. So how will reducing the block reward maintain the stability of the system? So this question is for Afri.
Thank you. Thank you, Ross. This is actually my favorite question. Because, yeah, I'm the author of this EIP, and so let's start with some facts. Actually, I'm lying a bit because EIP 1234 does not stabilize the issuance, but it actually increases it. So what we have is the difficulty bomb slowly kicking in, and the difficulty is growing exponential. This means block times are getting longer and longer, and the daily issuance during the difficulty bomb, or the so-called ice age, is going down rapidly. So with introducing delay of this bomb, we basically gift miners by giving them another 12 months of mining the blockchain, and this comes with a massive increase of newly minted Ether over a period of 12 months, and therefore we decided to reduce slowly the block reward to counter this issuance increase. So yeah, it's strictly not a I call it stabilization because we have two different angles here that are being addressed.
Okay, thank you, Afri. So there's another. So the user, some Jason guy, asked, what is the approximate time frame by when a complete switch to proof of stake will take place? Will there be another hard fork along the way? So who would like to answer it?
Yeah, so for the complete switch to proof of stake, so proof of stake is part of the Ethereum 2.0 Ethereum Serenity roadmap. It's split up, like I said, in multiple phases. The first phase is a full proof of stake chain in which people can deposit amounts of 32 Ether to become validators and earn rewards, and also apply penalties based on behavior. There are testnets being released early this year, and then there will be mainnet release probably this year for that. With respect to having the ability to withdraw that ETH and send it to other people, use it in contracts, etc. That is the next upgrade. So that is what we call phase 1 and onward, where we'll be adding sharding, smart contract execution, and more. So the time frame for that will probably be occurring after, probably during or right after the mainnet releases for the phase 0. So later, near the latter end of this year, we'll be seeing a lot more work being done on that subject. And it will not be a hard fork, by the way. So there will be the new chain will be released. There will be a smart contract on the current proof of work chain where people can deposit their Ether, become validators, run one of the ETH 2.0 nodes, and then they're good to go. There will not be any breaking changes. There will not be any sort of Constantinople-like scenario to the current proof of work chain to allow that to happen.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a question from the user Blockchain for Life. So what will the TPS be after the fork, and what do you guys see as the killer smart contract or DS for Ethereum? So who would like to talk about it? Yeah. Maybe David, you want to talk about?
Sure. My understanding is that the transactions per second won't actually change that much post fork. The chain will just be more efficient, and it will keep running with kind of in a more business as usual way, just because the difficulty bomb is being delayed. So miners will still be able to mine blocks. In terms of killer dApps, I would say there's a bunch of promising stuff happening right now. You kind of see people much more heads down and building in bear markets just because there's less hype, and so more people are heads down. I'm really excited for ETH 2.0 because I feel like once we have the beacon chain and shards functioning, then essentially Ethereum will be able to support kind of quote unquote killer dApps. Whereas now, yes, smart contracts work on Ethereum and they can do a lot of cool things, but it's still very hard to use them at scale.
Okay, yeah, and so the Reddit user Ding Chuan. So he asked if someone has a wallet prior to the fork, would that wallet be compatible with both Ethereum Classic and Ethereum? I, I think that's after the fork, right? Okay. So
which fork? Like,
yeah. All right. Yeah. So I mean, I think what he meant is, if someone has a Ethereum wallet, before the fork, after the fork will the wallet be changed, or what happened to the wallet? Okay. Okay. Good to know. All right. And so the user Stefan Burford asked. So there's a proof of stake, the LPOS. I don't know what that is, and delegated proof of stake. So why was like a proof of stake picked? So anyone wants to talk about it? Like why was proof of stake was chosen for Ethereum?
I think compared to the other sort of proof of stake alternatives, one of the
That's
biggest
right.
things was maintaining a high degree of decentralization, while also favoring properties that would make Ethereum safe against large sort of attacks or catastrophic scenarios. Right. One of the things that you hear a lot of ETH 2.0 implementers and researchers saying, shout outs to Danny Ryan here, is that Ethereum 2.0 wants to be World War III proof. So we want to be able to survive major world catastrophic events. We want to be able to survive having a lot of validators be offline, not doing their job for a certain amount of time. I think by having a very simple but robust proof of stake model with respect to how validators are selected and what their role is really important. We want to maintain, like I said, a high degree of decentralization with this. And the current Casper spec tries to strike a balance between these different things. Right? I mean, there are a lot of different proof of stake approaches. This is just more in line with what Casper FFG and some of the information Casper CBC has been over the past few years.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll take two more questions, and okay. So the next question is, so what is Ethereum network or like Ethereum community doing to promote the use cases for the smart contracts with proof of stake consensus mechanism? So what is the community planning to do, or like what is the Ethereum Foundation planning to do? I guess to promote the use cases, or to promote more use cases for the smart contract development with a proof of stake.
So maybe they mean like once we have scalability and proof of stake implemented, like how can the Ethereum network grow? To solve more problems in the world. I guess that's probably the question.
Yeah. I think that's right. Yeah. So yeah.
I'm super excited about not having to worry about probabilistic finality. So with proof of work, you have to wait for a certain amount of confirmations to occur before you essentially consider a transaction finalized. And where basically you have some amount of certainty that a reorg won't happen and that the transaction that has been included in a block will continue to exist. And essentially, with proof of stake, you don't have to deal with probabilistic finality. So as soon as you see enough validator sign off on a given block, essentially you can count it as finalized right away. It's pretty exciting. I think that'll help a lot of smart contracts.
Cool. So the final question is from DIR2. So what is the current strategy for resolving a consensus error in production? So I guess, Wei, you want to answer that question?
Okay, so I think Danny has a really good question that we all need to think about. But I mean, for our current way of resolving a consensus error in production is actually not very different from resolving a bug in software. So we just, if there's any consensus error ever happened, we will just try to look into the code as fast as we can and try to fix the bug and then do a release of the software. But I mean, that's like, but the problem is like we also need to. Another thing we need to think about is how do we actually prevent a consensus error from happening in production, and that is why we have really long hard fork time. Like we have nearly a year since last fork, just to test the software running correct, and we spin up new testnets to test whether the new consensus are working correctly. Martin is also running some Houbi testing and also other testing infrastructure to make sure that all clans agree on a single consensus state. But all in all, I mean, that's a really good question, and I think all of our developers should think more about like how do we handle those cases if that indeed really happened in the future.
Okay, all right. I think to be mindful of time, and I think we're close to the end of our live stream. So anyone wants to have a final words to the audience? So maybe let's start from David.
Read up on the EIPs that are being implemented, why they're being implemented, and then try to play with them. They let you do a lot of cool stuff that wasn't possible before. And if you want to see examples of them being used, I'm sure some of the projects are already kind of playing with them. So check out their GitHub repos, and play around.
Cool. QJ. QJ.
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to unmute myself.
Yeah.
Ethereum Community Fund is going to expand to more than just a grant program. We will offer much more in terms of tech support and then mentorship and connecting you with the right ecosystem to see whether they need your missing piece that you're working on, and also whether this project is closely related to blockchain or not, or whether it's just a good representation of the spirit that blockchain is trying to push for: transparency, openness, ownership, and these are all things that ECF network is trying to do. So check us up and write to us. Thanks.
Great.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. And Raw.
Yeah, everyone, really encourage people to follow the E2.0 spec. Right now, it's very much written for implementers, but I think there's a lot of work being done to make it more digestible and understandable. So if you look on GitHub in the Ethereum kind of organization, you'll find E2.0 slash specs. So dash specs, sorry. So you'll be able to just look at everything that's related to the beacon chain. As always, also follow the ETH research blogs. So there's a lot of new ideas coming on there. If any community members have questions or want to propose, interesting analyses about proof of stake, they can post them on there. And of course, check out the different implementers teams. So I want to give a shout out to my team, Prismatic Labs. So if you look up Prism, PRYSM on GitHub, you'll find a Go implementation of the beacon chain and everything related to E2.0. So keep an eye out for more information coming out this quarter. Thank you.
Awesome. So, wait.
I don't have a lot of things to say, but if anyone has questions or suggestion about Party Ethereum, or if you want to know more about Party's Ethereum 2.0 progress, please reach out to us.
Okay, great. So, Afri?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me on and giving me the time to say whatever I like. So we have an on-call developers call on Friday, and we need to decide on how to proceed with ASIC resistance or with POW in specific. I would like to ask the community, especially the miner community, to start some kind of wiki, some kind of documentation of performance of different GPUs using ETH and using POW. That would really help. And if this could be done before Friday, let's do it. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, my final words for the audience, and the transcript and also the full article of this session will be published on our Huobi Global blog, and you can also follow us on Twitter at Huobi Global. And if after the session you still don't understand, what's coming after the Constantinople half fork, or you don't know what to do, I think you can always check our announcements, and Huobi Global will take care of the rest. All right, that will be it. Thank you so much for your time today, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.